Hey everybody, Brandon Costa from Sports Video Group coming to you from New York City and the SVG FutureSPORT Conference. We have the pleasure of being joined by Jeff Adams from UAS Development. He's the president of the company. We had a good drone conversation during a panel today at the show. Jeff, thanks a lot for being here and being part of the whole experience here.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting us, and it was really eye-opening for us to see a lot of what's going on in the sports broadcast world, and hopefully we can find ways that we can integrate some of our technologies and marry the systems together in a way that allows producers to get the shots that they're looking for and allows us to be able to maybe save some time, budget money, and production costs in our workflow.
Well, sure. I mean, it's very eye-opening for us too because it's still a very new piece of equipment to use in live sports production, and obviously we're still kind of in that point in the conversation now where we're talking about the legal process, the FAA, 333 exemptions, all of these different kinds of terminology that's getting thrown out right now. For anyone out there watching who may not be up to date on some of these things, could you shed some light on what's kind of the state of things as of today, knowing that it could very well change by the time this video even goes up?
Yeah, so the process really requires individuals, if they're looking to operate UAVs or drones in any kind of commercial application, to get their authorization through the FAA, and that process right now, it's a short-term process, it's a Band-Aid to allow the opportunity for us to get out there and do these things before the FAA establishes their final regulations. The regulations will come where you'll be able to get your vehicle registered, get your pilot's license specifically to UAV operations. How that's going to interplay in where the locations are going to be available to operators. Presently, even with the 333 exemption authorization, our company isn't allowed to operate over stadiums that have a certain, I think it's 3,000 capacity seat stadiums. We can't fly over those. You need to operate in a very limited amount of airspace. So there are restrictions at present that are preventing us from doing a lot of the projects that I think some of the people in our audience today are interested in looking for in advanced development. Those those regulations will actually be structured in a way that we'll have the opportunity to do those eventually. But for right now, it's anyone's guess what the final regulations will be. The FAA takes a lot of heat because the regulations are pretty draconian right now, but they need to be on a safety perspective. It's important, any new technology, any new infrastructure, especially like in transportation, you need to make sure you've got a history of its capabilities, a history of its drawbacks and whatnot. And once that gets established and the FAA can establish regulations that are common sense but give us the opportunity to take advantage of the technology, it'll blossom pretty quickly.
Okay, great. So, as you mentioned, the best and quickest way for a sports broadcaster now to get into the drone market is to work with a company that has that 333 exemption or is authorized by the FAA to fly commercially. So when a broadcaster is looking to partner with a company like that, we see Fox Sports works with Hello Video out of Austin. It's just one example. I'm sure there's more. What should be on their checklist of things to go through when they are kind of out there on the dating scene with droid companies?
I would definitely go with someone from Massachusetts, but that's just me. Now, the first and foremost thing is obviously looking for a company that has legitimacy, that has their Section 333 exemption. Typically, those companies are also going to have their own production insurance for their crews, for their equipment. They'll have experience because you need to demonstrate to the FAA capabilities before you're authorized, to at least the extent of what your airframe is capable of, know what your flight operation, your mission parameters are going to be. So a company that has their 333 exemption, that shows they're insured, shows that they have some other connections into the industry, whether they're pilots or their camera gimbal operators, have some broadcast or production experience, because it's a multifaceted tool. It requires a lot of skill sets to operate. There certainly are people in the industry right now who have some of those skill sets. I mean, if you look at just the gimbal that hangs off the bottom of our airframe, it's no different than the gimbals that hang off of sky jibs or hang off of any other elevated perspective. So there are operators who know how to do that, but working in conjunction with the pilot and knowing what the capabilities and limitations of the lift system are, really, those companies that have that teamwork, that choreography paired up, and know how to execute those shots are really going to give you the best bang for your buck. There are some companies that look at getting their own licensing. It's certainly conceivable. It's not a problem. It just takes a little paperwork and about 120 days of time to wait for the FAA to make a decision. Right. But you're introducing a very broad infrastructure that you need to maintain, not only of additional equipment, and battery systems for those. But as the technology rapidly develops, you're probably going to be better off hiring an outside service supplier to come in, because they'll stay on the cutting edge, because they can turn it over and use it with enough consistency that makes it worth their time to do those kind of investments.
Now, lastly, we could talk about the safety and the legalese of this all day until we're blue in the face. But how does it actually look on screen? And one of the issues that was brought up during the panel discussion when we were in there was when you go to a drone camera right now, for example, like it was on Fox at the U.S. Open, is that the colors and the image is kind of noticeably different. Yeah. Now, the point was also made, well, it's an obviously different perspective, so you can get away with that, and it's fine. Yeah. But in what ways can our group and your side of the aisle kind of work together to help bring that picture to the point where we would like it to be?
So basically, we're just a walking on camera crew to work with your productions. If you're running the major ground recordings of a sporting event, and you hire us to do the aerial component, you're really just looking at us as a B camera crew, and we need to have the same componentry or work with the same technologies as far as camera capabilities and camera settings and the resolutions that you're capturing in. And a majority of the systems that are devised right now, aerial cinematography and the feature film and television production for scripted work, their look is different, and so those camera systems are more readily available. I think we need to really, as an industry on the drone side, we need to make sure that we understand exactly what type of camera systems the sports production groups are using, what's their workflow, and how can we integrate into that so that we're only adding material into the pipeline that's already relevant and is already compatible with what they're working with already. So we're very happy to have conversations with either production companies or even camera manufacturers to discuss what our capacities and capabilities are, and whether or not we can integrate their cameras or their workload onto our airframe. We'd be happy to have those discussions.
Well, it's a fun and exciting kind of segment of the industry that we're looking forward to keeping track of here. Jeff, thanks a lot for joining us here today, and we appreciate you sharing your expertise with our audience.
Thank you so much for having us. We had a great day.
All right, for more from SVG's FutureSPORT, you can visit us online at sportsvideo.org, and you can follow the event on Twitter using hashtag SVG FutureSPORT.